Welcome to our JavaScript web course. In this video, we will look at functions and we will also discuss the const and let variable declarations, variable scope, and arrow functions. If you've worked with another programming language, you are probably familiar with functions. A function is a set of statements or block of code that performs a task or determines a value. A function is executed when it is called. It is typically called when an event occurs. In our case, the event occurs on the web page in response to a user action or the page loading. Functions help you to organize your code and make your code more efficient. And functions can be reused. This is the syntax or structure for a basic function declaration. We use the function keyword followed by the name of the function. The name of the function is followed by an opening and closing parenthesis. And then we have the left and right curly braces. Inside those curly braces, we place the code that will be executed when the function is called. The function keyword is very similar to the var keyword. The var keyword establishes the name of the variable. The function keyword establishes the name of the function. The rules for creating the function name are the same as the rules for creating a variable name. In order to call this function, all you do is reference its name as you see here. I would like to point out the layout of these curly braces. This is the typical layout that you see in most people's code. You don't have to place your curly braces in these positions. However, by using a consistent layout when you have curly braces helps you to see your code and also to find errors. A common mistake in programming is to omit one of the curly braces, and that will typically happen when you use different types of layouts and the curly braces get mixed up with the rest of the code. When a function is declared, you can also declare parameters that will accept values to be passed to that function. So here is the syntax of a function that has parameters. Inside the opening and closing parentheses next to the function name, you would place one or more parameters. If there are several parameters, they are comma separated, as you see here. Those parameters will also exist somewhere in the code to be executed. In the function call, you will set values in those parentheses. Those values will be passed to the parameters, so that when those parameters are used in the code, those values will replace the parameters and be used in that code. You can think of these parameters similar to a variable in that they hold a value. So technically, the function is declared with parameters and the values or arguments are passed to those parameters. Many people interchange these two words, parameters and arguments. So I'm just explaining the difference. It doesn't really matter what you want to call them as long as you know how to use them. Another thing I would like to point out is that I am using a simple alert inside my functions to test the code and also to test the function call. Rather than trying to access elements on a page, this is an easy way to just make sure that the function is being called properly and/or that the code is working properly. A function can also return a value. So here you see a function that has two parameters, and I have the function call inside an alert, which will display the value of the function because it will be returning a value. So I am passing two values to this function. Those values are being passed to the expression, which is a calculation. The function is returning the sum, so that when we call that function, it will return a value. You will often be using variables inside functions. So I would like to discuss what is called variable scope. Scope refers to where those values exist or take effect. Variables declared at the top level of your script tag are considered global variables, and they are available anywhere within your application. Variables that are declared inside a function are called local variables, and they are only available inside that function. So in this example, the first alert would reflect the value of the global variable, where the second alert, which contains the function call, would reflect the value of the local variable. I would like to point out that this situation exists only because we are using the same name for several variables in the same application. There are two other variable declarations in JavaScript that were introduced in 2015 with ES6. One is const, C-O-N-S-T, and that is used to declare a variable that will hold a value that will not change. C-O-N-S-T stands for constant, meaning it has a constant value. The other one is let. We just talked about variables declared inside a function having local scope. We will also have variables being declared within block expressions, such as an if statement or a loop, which we have not yet covered. They do not have local scope. They have global scope. However, if you declare the variable using let, you can give that variable block level scope, which is essentially the same thing as local scope. So that is the purpose of using let. var is still a valid keyword to declare variables. However, many programmers are just using let in a lot of code today. So in this example, I have an alert outside the if statement, which we have not covered yet, and the value of that variable will be Teresa, because Teresa was declared with global scope, even though it was declared using a let. Inside the block of code identified by the curly braces, the value of the variable will be Maria, because we are using let, which gives that variable block level scope, which is similar to local scope. If these lets were changed to vars, the alert declared outside the if statement block would be Maria and not Teresa, because the value would have been changed inside that if condition. So far, we have been looking at function declaration. We also have a function expression. A function expression stores the function in a variable. Therefore, it does not use the function keyword. It uses the var keyword. And we declare a variable name to represent that function. So here we have var, the variable name, the equal sign, and we have the word function followed by an opening and closing parenthesis. That function does not have a name. It is just an expression. Therefore, this is considered an anonymous function. We still have the opening and closing curly braces where the code to be executed will be placed. We also have a semicolon at the end of that curly brace because this is technically a statement. That function call would be the same as if it was a function declaration. However, the variable can also be used in code to execute the function. The arrow function was introduced in 2015 ES6 to simplify the syntax for a function expression. Essentially what it does, it eliminates the word function. So here we have var, the name of the variable, equals, and all we have are the opening and closing parentheses. To the right of that, we have the equal sign and a greater than symbol. That is called an arrow or a fat arrow. So that arrow is telling JavaScript that this is a function. We still have the opening and closing curly braces with a semicolon at the end, and the function call is the same.